The U.S. economy has been called the heartbeat of the modern world. It drives global trade, shapes currencies, and influences markets from Wall Street to Shanghai. But how strong is it really? Is America still the unstoppable giant of global economics, or is the empire showing cracks beneath the surface? Today, we break down the story of the U.S. economy, its foundations, its hidden weaknesses, and where it might be headed next. 1. The foundation of the U.S. economy. The United States economy is the largest in the world, with a GDP exceeding $27 trillion in 2025. It's not just size that matters, it's structure. Unlike many nations that depend on one or two sectors, the U.S. economy is highly diversified. Technology dominates Silicon Valley, manufacturing powers states like Michigan and Ohio, agriculture thrives in the Midwest, and Wall Street in New York continues to be the financial capital of the world. This blend makes America more resilient than countries that lean too heavily on one resource, such as oil or manufacturing. When one sector struggles, another often picks up the slack. 2. The dollar's global power. One of the greatest weapons of the U.S. economy is not an army, but its currency. The U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency, used in nearly 60% of all global foreign exchange reserves. Oil, gold, and international commodities are priced in dollars, which means almost every country on Earth needs to hold and use U.S. currency. This gives the U.S. a privilege no other country enjoys. It can borrow money cheaply, print dollars during crises, and still maintain global trust. Even during economic downturns, investors often flock to the dollar as a safe haven. This global reliance cements U.S. influence, but it also creates responsibility. If the dollar wobbles, the world shakes. 3. Innovation and technology leadership. America has always been the land of invention. From Thomas Edison's light bulb to the iPhone in your pocket, U.S. companies have set the pace for global innovation. Today, tech giants like Apple, Microsoft, Google, Tesla, and Amazon are not just companies, they are economic empires. The U.S. spends more than $700 billion annually on research and development, fueling advances in artificial intelligence, biotech, clean energy, and even space exploration. This innovation culture gives America an edge, attracting top talent from around the globe. While countries like China are racing to catch up, the U.S. still leads in creating the technologies that define the 21st century. 4. Debt and deficit problems. Yet beneath the success, challenges are mounting. The national debt has surpassed $34 trillion, a figure larger than the entire U.S. economy. Every year, the government runs budget deficits, spending far more than it earns. This borrowing funds defense, infrastructure, and social programs, but it comes at a price. Rising interest rates mean America now pays hundreds of billions annually just to cover interest on its debt. Some economists warn of a debt trap, where borrowing becomes unsustainable. While the U.S. has always managed its debt through growth and inflation, the sheer scale today raises questions about how long this can continue. 5. Inflation and rising costs of living. For everyday Americans, the economy is not about Wall Street or GDP. It's about whether they can afford groceries, rent, healthcare, and gas. In the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, inflation surged to its highest levels in 40 years. The Federal Reserve responded by raising interest rates, cooling down prices but also making loans, mortgages, and credit more expensive. While official inflation numbers have started to ease, the reality is that housing costs remain sky-high, college tuition is crushing families with debt, and healthcare expenses are among the highest in the world. For many, the American dream feels increasingly out of reach. 6. The wealth gap and inequality. Perhaps the most striking problem is inequality. The top 1% of Americans now own more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. Billionaires like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Warren Buffett control fortunes larger than some entire countries. Meanwhile, millions of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, struggling to pay rent or medical bills. This wealth divide has political and social consequences, fueling polarization and debates over taxation, healthcare, and education. While the U.S. is still a land of opportunity, the gap between rich and poor continues to widen, creating long-term risks for stability. 7. Trade wars and global competition. Globalization has made the U.S. both powerful and vulnerable. In recent years, trade tensions with China have exposed America's reliance on foreign manufacturing. While the U.S. exports massive amounts of agricultural products, high-tech goods, and financial services, it also imports critical electronics, machinery, and raw materials. Tariffs and trade wars have disrupted supply chains, driving up costs for businesses and consumers. As China grows stronger, the European Union pushes for independence, and emerging economies rise, the U.S. faces a more competitive world than ever before. 8. Energy dominance and transition. One of America's hidden strengths is energy. Thanks to the shale revolution, the U.S. is the world's leading producer of oil and natural gas, achieving near energy independence. This makes the U.S. less vulnerable to foreign energy shocks, unlike Europe, which relies heavily on imports. At the same time, America is investing billions in renewable energy, solar, wind, and nuclear power, positioning itself as a future leader in green energy. Balancing fossil fuels with sustainable technologies will be one of the key economic challenges of the coming decades. 9. The Federal Reserve's influence. The Federal Reserve, or the Fed, plays a central role in guiding the economy. By raising or lowering interest rates, it controls inflation, borrowing costs, and even global financial flows. For example, when the Fed raises rates, investors worldwide often move money into U.S. bonds, strengthening the dollar. When it cuts rates, money flows more easily, boosting growth but risking inflation. The Fed has been called the most powerful central bank in the world, and its decisions affect not just America, but the entire global economy. 10. The future of the U.S. economy. Looking ahead, the U.S. economy faces a crossroads. On the positive side, America still leads in technology, innovation, energy, and global influence. Its population is younger and more diverse than many developed nations, giving it long-term demographic advantages. On the negative side, rising debt, inequality, inflation pressures, and global competition pose serious threats. Some predict continued dominance, others warn of slow decline. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. The U.S. economy will remain powerful, but not unchallenged. Its ability to adapt will determine whether it thrives or struggles in the new world order. The U.S. economy is more than numbers on a chart. It is the backbone of the modern world. Every decision made in Washington, every innovation born in Silicon Valley, and every interest rate set by the Federal Reserve sends ripples across the globe. Whether you admire it or criticize it, the U.S. economy shapes all of our lives. The question is not whether America still matters, it's whether it can rise to meet the challenges of tomorrow.